Thank you, Rusty. We'll get the meeting started. The first item is consideration of the minutes for the Budget Committee meeting of May 4th.
Look to approve the minutes of May 4th.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. First order of business of public comments. We have anybody? Do you have anyone behind?
Oh, you got one.
Please.
Thank you. Jan Siebert Warmond, the Canna Beach Friends of the Trees. There will be about 778 97110. Dear Mayor, city councilors, and budget committee members. We are asking you today to consider $15,000 more this fiscal year to better support our Canna Beach trees. In this request, we envision the money to increase the role that our Canna Beach City Arborist plays in working early in the community development process with private landowners in regard to their development plans. Working together in something good that will save as many trees on their property as possible. In our experience, we've seen the need for services and expertise of capable city arborists increase exponentially over the past few years. Please help us support our Canna Beach trees. More than ever, protection of the wooded character of both our residential and commercial areas needs guidance and knowledge that our city arborists with proper funding can provide. Thank you for your consideration. Oh, you got somebody else.
Please.
That's going to be able to get his computer on, and I came, got some answers to your questions that you had at the last meeting, and would like to reiterate this, that I have a copy of our after search permit, which mentions in it removal of detritus, all the and dried algae, and that's okay by the state. It's all in our research permit. If anybody's interested in seeing this research, I made a copy of the research permit. This is I have the original here. But they got to the point where once they knew what we were doing, they really love what we do. Okay. And so they told me, Mark, look, just get out on the beach and work whenever you want, as much as you want. We're not going to make you file permits anymore, state, because they like our work so much. But it mentions in here about the detritus and that. And then I had a conversation with Ben Cox, a long conversation about this, just to make sure that we are on the right page with our protocols. And he asked, have anybody call him and specifically mention Mr. St. Dennis with any questions about the detritus that Mr. Dennis arose, because he says we already know about that. We're fine with that. And it isn't an issue. But keep going, Mark. They love what we do. There was a permit filed for the machinery. There's this heavy industrialized machine. They bring a truck down the beach, the vacuum. This is what Karen Labonte mentioned. I think they denied their permit. It's very invasive machinery they bring down on the beach, and that permit denied. So they really love the way we do it. They're not worried about the detritus and the and I don't know. I have a financial report from our accountant of our wages that we paid last year for Canna Beach. I don't know if anybody's interested in any of this, but I wanted to bring it just to clear up any questions, particularly the detritus and the other system that Karen was mentioning. not sure where we're at with this. Ed was supposed to be here and he had some stuff he wanted to say. I was kind of here to back him up and just give this information about our project on the ground. And how we take some grass, some small wood and some pine needles, and it mentions that here in the permit. It's a matter of efficiency time. So we don't take, we take all the water stuff out. And our filter screens break down if we ran any of wood. Even might go off anything that small. Why Ed isn't.
It's online.
Yes, okay. It might be something. I know he wanted to talk. Would you like this, Mr. St. Dennis? Phone number, he really wanted me to call.
No, that's okay. And we talked to Justin.
Oh, Justin Parker. Did anybody ever talk to Neil Main?
Me?
Neil Main, because he said you were gonna maybe contact Neil Main too about.
No, we got from, it was either you or Ed that said that you were going to contact Neil Main, so we didn't bother him.
Oh, no, he wants, I told Neil that Lisa was gonna contact him, because Lisa said, I'll call Neil Main. He wants to get a call from one of you. So, official, it doesn't matter if I say something, that's not really, that doesn't really work. But he wanted one of you to call him so that he could give his support to the project.
Okay, I'm sure we can make that happen.
He's, you know,
I can,
owned by all his areas.
I know who he is. Thank you.
I can call Neil.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
And Ed had his hand up. Want me to get Ed?
Yep. Please.
Ed, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm Ed Johnson. I am president of Sea Turtles Forever. My address presently is 929 Trosper Road, Southwest, Tumwater, Washington. My comment is it's supportive of Mark's work. We both spent a lot of time trying to get all of our ducks in a row. I know that we have made mistakes. I assume that there's some photos of our lack of attention to detail. However, there is no place that is not accepting the quality of our work as far as the microplastics and being mixed with the large woody debris. So I just hope that the council will be somewhat forgiving for maybe our lack of attention to some details. And I'm sure that in the next year, if you grant us a continuation, that we'll do a much better job of reporting to you in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Ed.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Good.
He'll be online either.
Okay. Let's move on then. Thank you. So we have a couple other additional items that Lori passed out today that are not on the agenda. One of them is a note from Sharon and another is a report from Bruce. Should we handle those now? Okay. Why don't you talk about first? You going?
You decide.
Bruce?
What's your report, Leon?
Sea Turtles Forever, I think.
Oh, we just provided the photographs as we said that we would. And sorry, that Mark has left. I thought the discussion was done and apparently so did he.
I don't see that on the agenda. Are we planning a discussion of the sea turtle on the agenda?
I don't know if it got put on the agenda, but there was discussion. Carryover with questions from last Thursday.
Right, so
So that's what we're going to be discussing.
right now, or,
It can be, or it can be later.
yeah, I just don't know. I don't see it on the agenda, so.
Yeah. Kind of got started with the public to be heard. But we will move forward with any direction provided by council. The committee.
Is Kelly available? Because on your note, it said Kelly could speak to this too.
Kelly's online, yes.
Sorry, I forgot that she was on mine. Yes.
Can we get Kelly?
Yes, please.
Can you hear us, Kelly?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Hi, I'm Kelly Ennis. I'm the director of the Haystack Rock Awareness Program. I mostly am here to answer any specific questions if anyone has any related to this issue. I don't really know the direction if you want me to just state kind of, I don't want to say I don't want to put an opinion about budgeting or funding on this, but I'm happy to answer any questions related to the issue.
Kelly, did you find the work effective in your view?
Effective in terms of removal of plastics, yes. And then there is the component, if we're talking about the woody debris and rackline debris, that doesn't fall in line with other marine debris removal protocols in which we are trained and told to leave anything that is considered natural, of which most woody debris is. So it depends on what you would consider effective, which end result.
Kelly, did you feel that the amount of wood debris that was collected or anything that was collected outside of the microplastic, was it detrimental to the health of our beaches and oceans?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I actually tried looking for a lit review to see if anyone has sought this out. Looking at, well, is there a kind of a net positive impact removal of plastic despite the removal of driftwood and rackline woody debris, which is considered ecologically important and necessary for nutrient cycling within the ecosystem. And we couldn't find really a clear answer on that. And so that's why the current scientific opinion is to just leave it, because we do not know if there is a net positive of removing the plastic, but also removing the natural habitat that is there.
I have a follow-up question then. Is there a method that you know of to just remove the microplastics without removing the other debris that does not require machinery?
Yeah, the current method at this time is still just hand picking. There are some regulations in some jurisdictions that will focus on if you are using mesh filters or machinery in other parts, then that you create a buffer specifically around rack lines and near dune lines that then requires those areas to specifically just be handpicked so that all of the woody debris and rack line debris gets left in place.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Somebody has a question?
Yeah.
Apologize.
No other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Not at a point that we're talking, I guess we are talking about specific line items, but this is one that was staff recommended last year. So it's something that we can either try to address now or we can try to address at the end.
Well, what about the question of Neil? Are we going to ask him to come or not? Is
We
Kelly?
can, I
this
think,
place?
if that's a deciding factor, we can certainly do that, but I don't know if we'll be able to get them today. And I don't know if you're planning on having another meeting on the 18th.
Kelly, I have a question. How do you feel about, I don't know if I should even ask this. How do you feel about making this a line item budget? Ongoing line item budget? I don't know if this is something you want to answer or not, but I'll just throw it out there.
I don't personally really want to answer that. All I can say is there are some set protocols to be followed when it comes to maintaining the health of the rack line, which our shorebirds we know depend upon. And I'm hesitant on anything that's overly disruptive of that, but I also recognize the importance of removal of microplastics from the environment. So I don't want to make a firm personal opinion on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kelly?
Thank you, Kelly.
I have one follow-up question. Kelly, are you aware of any individual organization that can remove microplastics in a way that's not harmful?
She's at an airport, so.
Did you hear that, Kelly?
Yeah. Not necessarily specific organizations. NOAA is the main organization who have a marine debris removal protocol that we follow, but it's entirely all handpick.
Okay, so we don't know of anyone who could do this work differently than what Riddles is doing.
I haven't looked into other organizations that might have other methods.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kelly? Good. Thanks, Kelly.
Yep, thank you.
Safe flight.
Next on the agenda. There is one other item. There is a email from Sharon Clyde regarding a referendum on the ballot to repeal the county's STR policy. Does everyone see that? That up for discussion. That is not on the agenda item.
It was my understanding that the income from the STRs that we're getting back from the county are part of the Cannon Beach collections. Is that true?
They give us back this 30%, no,
30.
70%. They're keeping 30%
Yes.
and then they give us a 70% collected within the town.
Of the Cannon Beach collections, but we don't get any of the unincorporated collections.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't change our budget projections.
Remember, too bad. No, it's only going to be in the unincorporated. It's only going to affect the unincorporated areas. Well, I had not thought that. I had not thought that through. Let me think.
Well, Bruce, while you're thinking, I do have a concern along those lines. And that is if the county is, less $700,000 a year, I know they can't. Their main reason for raising the tax was to fund the jail. So they can't take the 70% and fund the jail with that. So I'm not sure exactly if we're, it's a false equivalency.
The only reason I'm even questioning it is to get Sharon's question answered.
Mhm.
And it sounds like as far as that goes, that at least the majority of the collections are not going to reduce our potential revenues from that source.
That's correct. If it was anything in the county, it could potentially be impacted. The collections in the city, they will still be making, and we will still be getting the same percentage.
And to the other point that Sharon made about nothing in writing about the money that's coming back to the county from the collections. Is that true? Or seems like I've heard your response to that question in the past, but I'd like to give you a chance to clarify.
Conversation I've had with the county administrator is that the county commission and himself recognize that commitments have been made with the funds that have been returned to the cities and that they don't plan to make any changes on that. Could we get it in writing? I don't know if we could get it in writing. I'm comfortable enough that if they recognize, because it's not just us that's made commitments.
Bruce, may I comment?
Oh, sure.
County did prepare, it was either an ordinance or a resolution
Mhm.
whereby they said they would be sending the 70% to the cities
Yeah.
in which it's collected.
Mhm.
It wasn't like a guarantee, though.
Right, that's-
So that's your backup was with your conversation with the county manager. But there is something in writing that says they are going to give this amount to each city where it's collected.
Okay.
Because Bruce says, I don't think that there's anything that is a guarantee in that statement, but that was the impression that I got.
I'm trying to kind of look beyond what could happen if the $700,000 is lost from the unincorporated areas and they have to make that up in order to pay for the jail.
Mhm.
Could that affect the amount of money that we take in? I understand that it's from our particular lodging taxes, but is there any, I'm just trying to figure out if there's any way that in order for them to make up that 30%.
Wouldn't be able to come from more TLT.
Unless they raise it again.
Well, I guess I might have misunderstood Nancy's premise is that some reason that 30% went away and they needed to make it up.
That would be one way to do it.
Right. Oh, yes, they could. Well, if the 30% wasn't adequate, then they could add a percent. But I just can't think of a way that they would just lose the 30%. If I understood your question. correctly.
Yeah, I think you're understanding it correctly. Because they get they get 30% of that $700,000 to run the jail. If they lose the 700,000, like is that 30%?
Right.
The 30%, that's $700,000. So, how much is that? So for $400,000 that they might lose. So they'd have to make it up some way to pay for the jail.
210,000.
There's no, right, but the funds that they send to us are restricted.
Right. I understand that.
I don't know.
I'm just wondering if there's any way in the world they could make some, I think you're right. I think they probably would have to raise tax.
If that's what they chose. to
That-
do.
Yeah, if they've been,
If you're asking if there's anything in the world, potentially they could go to the legislature and the legislature exempts them from, not everybody, but just them saying that, no, the 70% you can also use for the jail, then I think it could impact us.
yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. Okay. Hard to look into the future like that, but on the other hand, there's that potential.
Yeah, there always is. Way back, we had said that it's possible we may need to replace that with a 1% if the county were to take it away.
But just to be clear again, and I think maybe you answered this, we don't receive any portion of the lodging taxes collected from unincorporated areas.
That's correct.
Okay.
Sharon actually has her hand up. Do you want me to get her on?
Please.
Okay. You there, Sharon?
I am here. I just wanted to say thank you for answering my questions. I feel much better now. And that was great. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Any other comments on Sharon's email? Okay. Thank you. Let's get back to the agenda. The item for today, discussion on the general fund, the Haystack Rock Awareness Program on page 29.
That's what I want to be like. Okay. All right, I'm back. Can you still hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Rusty. So our budget is, I'll just kind of run through this a little quickly, and then if anyone has any questions at the end, or if you want to interrupt me, feel free to. It's pretty straightforward. So starting at the top with our personnel services, our number of full-time staff is unchanged. Salary increases are just the standard, nothing really different there. We have changed a little bit between our part-time salaries just based on hours allocations, and then everything else should be kind of along standard changes there. Still same set number of seasonal staff as we have had in the last 3 years, I believe. And then for our materials and services, everything is just adjusted based on what our actual real numbers for this previous couple of years have been. The 2020 year was obviously the clearest dip down. Biggest increase is going to be our vehicle fuel, which has gone up. And because we have a gasoline powered UTV that is added on, that adds to the fuel costs. And then the one thing you might notice that's a little different is our operating materials and supplies dropped down to 9,000 when last year it was at 17,000. The 17,000 was an adjustment that we made based on donations that were given to us from Friends of Haystack Rock for specific purposes or specific expenses. And we would do the same thing for future years with grants and large donations that would change the operating material purchases and supplies. Everything else is pretty much in line, and just moderate adjustments based on what actuals were. We have any questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate having me on Zoom. The flexibility is really appreciated.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Coming.
Okay. The next order of business is the general fund farmers market on page 30.
Bruce?
Sure. Farmers market is essentially the same budget as before. There is a slight increase in I'm trying to see which that came about. Oh, on on the salary side, we've hired a new market manager, and that there was a difference in the salary over time. We anticipate over time, and that's about it. Everything else stays relatively the same.
When you said when you anticipate overtime, do you mean through a period of time or overtime?
I'm sorry. Yes, it's a period of time.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you for clarification.
I have a question. I volunteered at the farmer's market, and last year, we ran out of merchandise, and there was a big concern about not being able to purchase more because the budget already been exceeded. And I see that the budget hasn't changed from last year. Has there been any thought of increasing that budget so we don't run into the same situation this year? Should we have a good sales year again?
I will have a conversation with Tracy, because if we are getting low on inventory, we have this budget, but we can also always make a decision and come back to the council and ask for another $1,000, $3,000 or whatever, because we're selling through our materials. We're not set up so that if we make money, we can use that money to buy more directly.
I understand.
But there just needs to be that communication to know that, yeah, you can do that.
But there is a big time gap with that. And waiting for the council to meet, then getting their approval, then purchasing. I'm sure we're all aware supply chains have not improved drastically
Right.
in the last few years. They're not likely to improve. So this merchandise has to be ordered way far in advance, and it would be my recommendation that there would be consideration to increase the budget now on these line items, so there's more wiggle room should they need to place larger orders ahead of time. Because there were, and Nancy can help correct me, but I think there were at least 3 weeks where we had no hats whatsoever. The last 4 weeks, we had no mugs. These are not, the city is not going to be made or break over elements or not, but we're still there and it's not a service to the visitors. And so my recommendation would be that those line items be increased to allow room to have a better inventory management.
And it can take months to get some items.
Yeah, remember the sweatshirts, we got them.
Forever.
Once the heat kicked in, we got our sweatshirts. During the cold weeks, we had no sweatshirts.
I think we can solve this this way. If you will allow me some time so that I can talk to Philomena and Tracy, talk about that, talk about whether or not we want to, or to actually go ahead and order more in advance, because that's the only way it's really going to help us. And then when we get to the budget session for the budget approval, we will come back with a different number.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you for bringing that up. I was not aware that we ran into that.
Oh, yeah, we have
Yeah, it was a
pretty bad.
big deal.
Okay, no, thank you.
Any idea what revenues are for merchandise?
I don't, I wasn't really privy to that. Philomena kept that. I don't know if Nancy has that number.
I don't really,
Right.
but I, you
Is it
know,
reflected somewhere in the budget?
we had quite good sales
It was a
last
good year. I mean, seriously,
year.
it was helped by the fact that we had some leftover T-shirts that we sold at bargain basement prices. But really, the sales were really robust.
Good.
Yeah, if you look at page 26, kind of toward the bottom, but in the middle, the farmer's market sales. And we did increase that budget this year to 6,000. And you can see what it was trending on the left-hand side of your budget document. We budgeted 3,000 current year based on the prior year data. So we did increase that quite a bit, doubled it.
And we should have caught that and then we've done an increase on the other side. So we'll come up with something for the at the budget approval.
And it'll go straight into the general fund.
Yes.
Thanks, Dory.
And was it shirt? It was shirts and sweatshirts that and hats.
Yeah, hats was
Hats were big.
big deal, but sweatshirts ahead of time because again, they need to be ordered. They should have already been ordered
Right.
in order for us to have them in time for next month and during the cold weeks. So hopefully those have been ordered in sufficient number.
Hoodies were big too, because there was such cold summer. Yeah.
And people are ill prepared when they apparently come to the meeting.
I see people going out in T-shirts and shorts all the time because I'm parked right along the parking lot. And then 5 minutes later, they come back and just bundle up with a whole bunch of stuff and walk out with it to save the family.
Well, part of the problem is that those items are printed. We have
Sure.
our logo and everything on them, so it takes a while to get the printing done on them.
Yeah.
Which is why, and I think we had a supplier difference too. I think we had change in supplier.
Yeah.
So it took quite a while last year.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. The next item is building maintenance, page 27.
For the city hall, we have not gone out for a bond issue yet. And that's not the same situation as we have for Cannon Beach Elementary. So Cannon Beach Elementary already has funds that we can reach out to. We don't have the same situation in the city hall. And so this past year and this year, we are recommending that we budget $900,000 to pay for the construction manager and for the architect to be able to get through the design issues, to find out what our costs are going to be, those sorts of things. And then whatever we spent this year and whatever we spend next year, we have something called a reimbursement resolution the council has already approved. And it says that we can spend general fund money, but we can also, when we do the bond issue, we can also pay back the general fund with proceeds. So that's how we will set that up.
You said $900,000 for the construction management. I see 300,000.
No, I'm sorry, the $900,000 was for design and construction
Okay.
manager.
Okay. Where's the other 600,000 in this budget?
Just above it where it says
Oh,
signal
I see.
design.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Have we spent any of that this year?
Yes, we spent some of the 900,000 from this year's budget. And then whatever's left over, that will go away, and then we will start again with a new 900,000. Okay. There any other questions on that? Okay.
Okay. The next item, Cannon Beach Library, dated April 3, 2023, the budget binder.
Well, I would like to commend the library board for their reporting. They could teach a class.
Yes.
Other organization.
Well said, Mayor.
Thanks.
The chair's in the hospital.
Will there not be a presentation by the library?
Really?
There's a report from the very binder.
And Paul?
It's at the back of the binder.
Okay.
There's no page number indicated on the.
Yeah, it's the very last document.
Yeah.
What has occurred is that they are requesting 20,000 instead of the 18,000 that they've been receiving over the years. And they, like every other organization, their costs are increasing. Any other questions?
Were we asking the questions to you or?
Yeah, it's the manager's budget. So even though the library's not here, I will try to answer them.
Can we ask you about books you've read?
Yes.
I'm definitely in support of the amount.
Mhm.
I think that the increase is well explained. There.
I have to ask if the library has done anything to make up for this money as opposed to just asking for it. And my guess would be that I don't have the answer.
Well, you.
I'm not, I'm just a volunteer. I'm not on the board or anything. Board chair has been in the hospital for 3 weeks, so that's probably the reason she's not here. I can tell you that everything they say in here, we've done the book sales. We have the 4th of July book sale that brings in, I think, the majority of our money, as well as a drive, an appeal letter every year. And that those two, I think, bring in the majority of our funds. We have ongoing book sale room, as you know. I can't think of anything else that we would do.
We used to have a harvest festival also.
We have the Harvest Festival in September. We had that last year. And we continued to sell items through Christmas. We have the raffle for the quilt. So I'm not real sure what else we could do.
You would increase membership fees,
And we have the membership fees, and we have the library card sales, and
but you increase those memberships.
Right, so there's two things that come to mind immediately. One, and where I've said that there should be a consideration of increasing either the fees to become a member or.
What I'm saying is I think that they were.
I know that there is some talk about doing that. I think we're talking about increasing them by, now again, it's just what I'm hearing. I'm not on the board. So what I've understood is that there's some consideration right now of increasing the membership and library card fees by $10. But, that's not going to bring in thousands of dollars either.
No, but there was also a comment made to the library board about increasing the visibility of the used books to increase sales. Since especially during the summer months, it was noted that there were a lot of sales happening, but not a lot of opportunity for people to browse because that one room is pretty cramped and more than two people in there and you can't really browse. And the library seemed not to be hesitant about adding more space.
I'm not sure.
We go outside.
Space.
Huh?
We go outside during the summer too.
We did it last summer.
Oh. We have before.
What's that?
We've gone outside before too, on the benches out there. And
It was
we do it.
proposed that tables be added and that didn't come to fruition. So I'm saying this as it relates to my question is, could the library on their own raise these funds? $2,000 is not a big deal in the budget overall that we're talking about, but it still seems to me that nonprofits need to first help themselves before asking for help from others. And I come from the nonprofit world.
I'm not on the board. I don't make any policy decisions. I just work the desk every Monday and price books and work with the book authors committee. So all I can tell you is I don't know that there's much more space that we could add, especially since we work with volunteers. We have about 80 volunteers, 80 to 100 volunteers at the library. And when you're working at a desk, and if you're putting books outside, trying to monitor what books are being taken from outside and walking away versus working the desk with people coming in, especially in the summer, I think that would be very difficult unless you just want to have a volunteer monitoring the outside. And I don't know of any other space in the library the children's room is usually pretty filled in the summers as well.
Where the two armchairs are, apparently that used to be room for a table to have.
And we do have a table. We do have a table in the front, as you know.
One, yes.
Yeah. So we have a table in the front where the front door is with books. And then we have the book sale room. Right now, we have the long tables filled with art and music books that were being sold over the spring unveiling weekend. And we do that with the old and rare books as well. We'll have that Memorial Day sale coming up on Monday or at the end of May. And I think we pretty much filled that library to capacity.
In the budget right now for 18. And they're asking for 2,000 more.
We put it in for 20.
You put it in for 20.
Some of the current budget's 18. The current budget's 18.
current was 8.
Yes.
Any other comments? Next item is programs, page 28.
So the community,
That's what we just did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Municipal court, page 31.
Okay, so,
Oh, we didn't do community.
At the library.
The library.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is in community programs.
the community service grants, that's a program that's administered by the Parks and Community Services. The summer conference, some summer concerts, that's a project that Paul Duber and I've been working on. We were booked up for the summer for Thursday night. We're looking to do a couple on Saturdays now, again, under the city. Cannon Beach Library, we just talked about. Sea Turtles Forever, there was a line item. There's not one now. That's up to the council whether they want to reinstate it. The POS grant program, that was from the prepared food tax. We allowed a certain amount of money for people to help them to prepare their equipment and staff. Tolovana Hall maintenance. It's that in the landscaping, that is our building. And so we do that maintenance on it. The shuttle subsidy, there's, excuse me, normal traffic or normal service. Apologize. From Sunset Empire. And that's what you normally see out there every day. And then the shuttle subsidy, that's something that we did during the summer. And until Sunset Empire is back to where they are operating and they have got enough drivers. That's something that I don't see happening until that can occur. Last year, they weren't able to provide the service because they didn't have enough drivers. They had barely enough to go ahead and just do their routes. So that's one that I'm not sure if we'll go and we'll have the opportunity to spend.
There isn't any way we can provide some kind of transportation. I've been talking to people who live in Tolovana but work downtown and just can't make that walk back and forth, and they're depending on that.
We did it before.
Huh?
We did it before. We used to have dedicated employees in a vehicle.
What kind of vehicle were we using? Was it like
A small bus. Like a van front end with kind of bus you'd see at like a retirement center.
okay?
But it was part of Sunset.
No, city
Oh,
operates.
it was city operate?
Yeah.
I always thought I thought the vehicle was
It may have been
from
leased
Sunset.
by the city.
It was a long time ago. It was like,
Right.
what, 20 or 30?
It was like it was yesterday, Nancy.
Speak for yourself.
See the two people that got the most time on the council reminiscing here.
It was not while I was on the council.
Oh, this is
My neighbor was on the council that discontinued it. And at that point, we entered into an agreement with Sunset Transportation.
So if we have this budget amount and Sunset can't provide a vehicle and an employee,
we can look at that.
we could look at that.
My guess
To
is,
operate.
and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but that figure won't come anywhere near
Even,
cost of running.
even just for.
No, it's a very expensive proposition. I wanted to say this, and I don't know if we need to address it now, but would be a budget item, but it is something that's possible to do on the city's part.
We have any idea of,
I've been told 500,000.
oh,
Summer?
No, this would be,
No, this would be a year long.
yeah, I'm concerned about people who, I mean, I've talked to people who live in Tolovana, but they work here, work downtown, and to make that walk, they just can't do that. And especially in the weather. And they're literally looking for jobs in Tolovana, which are closer to their home, because they can't make it up to town.
Well, if you like, we can look into what it would cost the city to provide that. I would need guidance as to whether or not it's a summer situation or annual. When the normal bus was running, was that enough to take care of that need?
Well, it was what it was. And when you refer to the normal bus, do you mean the route from Astoria Seaside to here and back? Or are you talking about when Cannon Beach provided a driver and a vehicle?
First one. First example you gave, which is the normal.
So there were two separate things, kind of like what we up until, pretty much COVID had, was that there was always a bus route that came from Seaside into Cannon Beach. But it made a stop, say, at the Chamber Building and maybe down in Tolovana and Sunset.
Mhm.
And then our shuttle would run from the north end to the south end and cover everything in town.
In the summer.
No, it was year round.
Year round, okay, okay. All right. Yeah, because this is, the 66 is for just the summer.
Yes, and that's what we had decided, was that I think that was at the time, the council decided that summer would be
Sure.
what was most needed.
Right.
And I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, you see an empty bus going from one end of town to the other.
Mhm.
It's a little disconcerting, but
Yeah.
I also think there's a need, and maybe it's just something we can discuss. Seaside certainly does it in the summertime.
Mhm.
But what about those people that need to have transportation to work?
Well, that's the problem.
That's a year round.
It's huge.
Right.
But I'm just thinking of a shuttle that goes around town here. I mean, we just.
Yeah, we can only solve the
Seaside.
problem that we have.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that, the transportation district has some sort of
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah, there are a lot of unknowns there, but I think we should start the conversation about a local shuttle again,
Mhm.
whether it's summer only or full-time operation.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think it's going to change our budget.
No, but it should be something that we're discussing.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey,
Oh, I did have a question about the public art project. Is that a standard line item or is there a project?
It has been several times we've put $1,000 in and tried to pull something together. And it just wasn't a top priority for the people on the committee or the staff. It could be, we do have an opportunity, and I forgot which organization it is, but they were interested in they did something for the bottle bill, the land use bill. So, right, they wanted it for us to do. I thought that it would be the appropriate location. We can try to reestablish that communication. It's it's something that'll take some time to go ahead and sort out. But if we want to, if we want to be known as an arts community, to up that priority a little bit, try to make that happen.
That was the project you're talking about, the one at the end of Gower,
Sorry?
the Gower
That was,
beach access.
that
between
was what
Wayfarer
was
and-
being discussed.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
That's all private though, so we have to find out if we would be allowed to go there, but otherwise it could go, in another location.
Just curious.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have a placeholder in
Yeah.
for something happen.
Yes, but as far as the placeholder, it's not funded at this. When we were funding it, we anticipated, well. If I recall, the discussion was, we have several smaller pieces of public art. But that if we're gonna do something like the beach bill or something like that, that it should be a little bit more substantial. And folks that we were talking to would help us with recruiting or trying to pull together funding. But that we would have to, cover ourselves.
Well, we do have a public art project at $25,000.
I'm sorry, I was looking up Oh, I'm sorry, we do have that one funded for the 25,000. I was looking at it as the blank up here on purchase of public art. So we will revive that project.
Next slide. Go ahead. Next item, municipal court, page 31.
Finance Department oversees the court clerk at 0.5 FTE. And the major change to this budget this year is the parking management system that Jason referred to in his police budget. We are sharing the cost of that since it helps our court clerk manage the parking tickets. Jason and I both agree that 50-50 on the cost of that program. And so that's pretty much what's making it more than the prior year.
Is that the contractual services?
Yes, 28,500.
Lori? With the municipal judge and the legal services, are those both the same thing or they just happen to cost the same thing?
The municipal judge is just strictly for judge costs. And then the legal services is for our prosecutor.
Got it.
And those have gone up a little bit just because these we have new people in these places and costs went up when we transitioned over to different staffing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. See management, page 39.
For some reason, I thought Rick was going to be here, so I'm sorry. The increases have to do with mass care, some contracts and other things that we're trying to get. Some of it will be funded by grants. For example, a Nacho grant for the MRC, and that's the Medical Reserve Corps for the food. We have made tremendous strides in our cash site programs. They are now have electricity. Some of them have water storage. We just received and we are the ones that are housing it. And but it's a water treatment trailer. It's the same treatment that I think that it was either Salem or Eugene or somebody when they had a problem in the lake a couple of years ago. We're storing it now. It actually belongs to the county, but the only one that has a freshwater source. And it's set up, it's reverse osmosis. So it'll take care of fresh water, purify it, but it's not a desal, which would take salt water and turn it into fresh water. So that's what the capabilities are, but we happen to have a water source. For example, the thing was originally intended for Astoria, but Astoria has to take water out of a brackish river, or at least the water there is brackish. So we're making a lot of inroads with that. And we're also making inroads with state agencies like the folks that provide mass care and those other sorts of things, because we're taking steps. And so they're willing to come in and help us. and set up their programs here. They've given us tents and a bunch of other things that, knowing that we are going to be able to make use for those. So the overall is down, but those are the programs that we're talking about doing, and they're all in the operational cost.
So is having the water and lights the reason there's a utility charge for $12,000, utility budget for $12,000 where there wasn't one before?
Well, we have power at the sites now.
And so that's $12,000 a year for the power?
Internet.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think if there's anything
yeah,
else.
because we have
We have cameras.
yeah.
But that's in already, right?
It's in already, but that's the part of the charge every month for all those services, probably.
That's all new stuff.
Yep. Didn't have those last year.
And communications allowance, $30,000.
Rosie, can you help with that?
I think Rick is still doing some communication upgrades, antennas, things like that. It probably is the CERC amateur radio probably is part of that.
Yeah.
There's probably multiple things coming out of that one.
Okay. And then the website development plan and website development. 24,000.
From 7 to 24.
Yeah.
Rusty, I think you were talking about that we were doing some website upgrades, I think in the staff.
I'm actually doing that right now, yes.
And all of us are trying to get to where the information is easier to access. And that may be a project that Rick was talking about.
It might have been, he was talking about doing some videos, structural videos and things like that for emergency preparedness and some other items. So I think he was talking about having somebody help him do part of that.
Okay.
That could be in there.
What about the mass care food trailer? That's gone up pretty significantly.
I don't know about that one.
That's a grant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Mass care.
I don't know if the capabilities we started out with or not. So I'm sorry, I can't do a better job answering the questions on emergency management. But you can see from last year, the food trailer, water filtration trailer, funding we got from the state recovery fund, some other grants that are coming in. There's nobody locally near us as far as our capabilities are from emergency management and for our ability to utilize the CAS sites to assist people if we were to have a major seismic event. And we took that on as a top priority. When I was having the discussions with Rick, he says this is probably the last year of us needing to spend more money on those on the CAS sites as far as bringing in new things. But we'll always be needing to replace and that sort of thing, especially on the food. But when we're talking about capability, all this equipment here, this is all set up for, to go if we have, or if we use this as an EOC. We have a contract, we're the first ones, I think, to do a contract with the radio club folks to do the ham radio people.
I'm ready.
And have them working closely with us. They've set up a lot of our radio systems. So we are light years ahead of where we were, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But we think we're at the end of that cycle of having to go ahead and put everything in new.
If everything goes today, this may be our last budget meeting, correct, Lori? Would it be possible to maybe synopsize some of the questions that were asked today and get a response from Rick?
Sure. Absolutely.
I'm not looking for anything, just short.
No, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I'll ask. As a matter of fact, I think he gave us something. Ken? Rick gave us something before he left on budget information, right?
That's in the budget message.
Okay, okay, but yes, we can answer your questions. Back, we'll send them to you. And if anybody's bringing anything back up, we can do an ask on it.
I'd asked that question on the STR compliance, $20,000 expenditure line item, and we've already said, director, we do that. Can someone speak to that or someone?
But we had the information from Jason talking about.
We talked to us about it in our department head meeting.
Did we have anything?
That was the first I'd heard about his explanation of what it does for us when he talked to Luke, our former code enforcement officer.
Right.
And he said that it was a big, big help in order for him to do his code enforcement job. I can't remember exactly every little detail that Jason mentioned, but I don't know, is Jason here today?
He said we can call him. He's,
Oh, right. I remember that too now.
But again, maybe that could be answered with
Yeah,
the emergency management questions also.
yes.
Yeah, I'm just kind of on the to-do list.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're done with that. Next is the Tourism and Arts Fund, page.
Bruce?
Sure.
This is a restricted fund for this an arts program where they fund events for tourism purposes. We built up a little bit of a fund balance here. During COVID, all the events planned pretty much got canceled. And that kind of kept filtering through year after year for a couple years. In fact, I just got some returned money from Lush Lux and one other, Wow. What's that called? Wow, something. So we're still getting money returned that's been granted out. So I'm not sure exactly why this is happening, but so we're awarding event money and then they're returning it. And we always build up a little bit of, we don't plan to spend all of the money we think we're going to get in the current year. So this is how that fund balance has built up to the $756,000. I spoke about room tax as a whole at our first meeting. And I directed you to page 15, kind of shows you for each fund where the allocation is going. Again, I said the total room tax we expect to collect next year is 5.5 million. It's the same as the current year budget. And I think that's a good place to stay for next year. And so 481,940 is the hotel share, short-term rental share here on back to page 50. And it's on page 15 as well. But 59,310 is 481,250. See that total there for tourism and arts under the 2024 fiscal year. So that's the revenue stream coming in proposed. And then we just say the TAF award could be for 81,250. They always award less than that. And then I just put the remainder of the resources into a tourism purpose line just to have it there in case. And that would only be spent by council approval.
Lori, this is one of those areas where I was wondering if the reserves were appropriate and, in the discussion of the elementary school project, which is certainly all about tourism and art. Is there any mechanism here where we could transfer out to
to that fund, rather than keep a $750,000 reserve?
I think we would need to have a discussion with the council and the committee because they have been working towards being able to fund things. Like if you were trying to do an event, that we would have the money to provide it to you at that time, as opposed to, I think it's somewhat retroactive.
You mean?
It takes a while before you actually get the money. Or until there's I apologize.
Room tax?
There was an effort to save enough money, to put enough money aside, that when a project came due, the funds would be there as opposed to
Paid out quarterly.
Yeah.
Correct. That's correct, Bruce, as best my recollection.
Yeah. Right. And so we need to talk to them about where they are in that payout schedule. And what Lori's talking about is that, well, some of those were scheduled to be paid out. We've actually had people come back and say, I'm not going to do my event. So I don't know if anybody's had a chance to go back and do a review or an audit on that, because we're still getting that information in. But is it possible? Yeah, it probably is possible because it is TLT. And
Maybe I misunderstood Lori, but the line 62120 tourism purpose, that's just a plug number. That doesn't have a specific.
Correct. That just makes our resources equal our expenditures.
And to spend that money would require council approval.
Yes.
Right.
And isn't the committee also considering giving the city council $100,000 toward the school anyway from that?
they have agreed to endorse that, but it is a council decision.
Right.
And it was, I'm making that distinction is that we would pull it up. So if they would normally have gotten 400,000, they will get 300,000 because we aren't eligible to apply for a grant because we're not a 501c3.
Okay.
But so,
Essentially, that's in the tourism purpose.
yeah, but I think Greg has more details.
And yes, let's hear from Greg.
Well, I was just gonna say, we haven't agreed to anything on that as a committee. I mean, ultimately, the council can do what the council wants to do. But as a committee, there hasn't been a vote or there hasn't been a motion to make that happen. We did talk about using those funds for things that the city could use that, school would be a good example of that. Rather than just funding, weekend type events. And I think what the consensus was, not to speak for everyone on the council, but I was put in the chair position last meeting when we met. And I've been on the committee for 3 years. We're finding that when you go out to ask the nonprofit, say, do you want to have an event? It has kind of waned a little bit. And, like the WOW one, I believe, is just too busy, not enough time, too much effort to put in. So here's your $40,000 back or whatever it was. I can't remember without looking at my notes, but, and there have been a couple of examples like that. And what we felt as a committee was we're taking all this money and providing it to these events that really just do a lot of advertising and might be a busy weekend or not. And there might be some ROI in it, but really was hard to quantify. Whereas project type things have it's clearly something that was funded and checked off the list of things that needed to be addressed by the city that worked for these kinds of funds. So, but Bruce, just to clarify that, I don't feel as a committee that we've had yes, let's do it that way. It was just kind of floated around. And ultimately, I think that's where everyone wants to see funds go, is to things that will help benefit both visitors and locals alike.
Would it be appropriate to ask the committee to have that discussion?
Yeah, at our next meeting, that was probably going to come up. The first meeting was just to talk about what would we do? What would it look like? And you guys probably heard me talk about this before, but like when the bandstand in the park came up a couple of years back, we wanted to throw $20,000 at it because we just knew it would be a good use of unrestricted funds. It ended up going through the parks and using general fund monies for whatever reasons. But that was a perfect example of why don't we use these unrestricted funds for something that visitors and locals alike would, it would check the ORS 320 box. And so we're just looking for more opportunities like that. Whether you like it or not, the Calucci Creek Trails was something like that.
I supported it.
Yeah, totally. And if you look around all the bike racks on cars around here and people staying here, and so it was a thing like that, as opposed to another thing, like longer term and so forth. But I think most people are behind it. As a committee, we formally in the last meeting asked, like, how do we get to that point? How do we, the original charter from 2010 that was created with the TAP committee, if you read the resolution, it says, this is what we're going to do. And as a committee, we were kind of brainstorming, how do we alter that or change that to focus on some of these types of things like the bandstand, like Calucci Creek, like maybe the school, like, what have you, because it veers from the original now 13-year-old resolution that was created when this fund was created. And that's where we are. That's how I feel where we are.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. My recollection also.
Yeah.
Question? It's up to the council. And like everything we're doing here is up to the council.
Hopefully, there is an arts commission. But it sounds like they're taking a look at this. They're willing to have that conversation.
That's what I'm hearing.
So and it's a great conversation to have. I would urge that to continue.
It sure feels that way. We just haven't literally had a vote, because I know some people have different ideas about it. And so then I believe that is on our agenda for the next meeting.
We've kind of seen it working for 12, 13 years, and it wouldn't be bad to.
Yeah.
I mean, my perspective is, I'm not about cutting programs or anything. I'm just about cutting slush funds. And slush funds that could be repurposed for things that are dire city priorities.
I don't think it's a slush fund.
Yeah.
I think that it had a specific purpose, that it would be able to, instead of paying quarterly, they'd be able to say, here's your grant. And that money has been building up over time and people have been turning money back in, which we're not sure exactly why. But it was never a slush.
What is a $750,000 balance doing if it's not a slush fund? I mean, that's way outside the scope of the annual operating.
I think slush fund is a little harsh.
Okay, I did not mean it in a harsh way, yeah.
But there's connotations.
Yeah.
Would excess funds be
Allocated
more?
money.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you got to have to remember a little bit about the timing here. So in 2020, when the small business grant was funded out of this fund for all the small businesses that were shut down,
$300,000.
120 some odd, yeah, roughly. That came out of this fund and took our balance to zero. And between whatever that was, May, June, July of 2020, and now it has replenished in that 2.5 years to 700,000. Partially because for a good portion, 18 months of that time, no one was doing events. We were still kind of in lockdown mode. City Hall was still closed, Coaster Theater was closed, all that kind of stuff. So it just accumulated.
But on top of that, as far as the accumulation, it turned out the money still came in. The 70% to 1%. And so your expenditures went down and the funds actually went up more.
Right. I mean, after May 26, when we reopened, it was busy and the TLT funds increased, but the events that we were funding were basically on hold for 1.5 to 2 years. And that's why you see the 700,000.
I think the pandemic is the primary reason. And I think obviously we weren't having events, but also now we're post-pandemic and people are dealing with, sounds like what I've heard and I personally experienced, that it's more difficult to do events with not people to do them, so it's the same.
It's more of an
workforce issues. What?
More of an employment issue?
Well, I think there's a huge volunteer issue.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was a lot of volunteers that quit volunteering during the pandemic and they haven't gotten back on the bandwagon.
True.
And to put on one of those events, you need volunteers.
But the city has also lost events for other reasons, would that be
Right.
correct?
Right, yeah. But I think the volunteer issue is,
I'm sure it's a big deal, but the event near and dear to my heart was lost. It had nothing to do with volunteers. It had to do with city, with lack of understanding and communication.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example of one is, and I can't remember the numbers without going back through my notes, but I think it was like $25,000-$30,000 that the chamber was awarded to do the sign in Cannon Beach. And so I think you brought up the sign last week, the south and north end sign that had fallen apart, rotted away. And so, and the chamber had an idea to, and I'm no longer affiliated with the chamber, just a member, had a idea to get a lot of the artists in the community together and get a plan and like, how can we do something creative that speaks to Cannon Beach? And then bring the ideas forward and create a sign. And they got involved with talking with ODOT and who owns the land and who would take care of the upkeep and got to the point where they're just like, we're done. Here's your money back. We don't want to deal with this because it is a bureaucratic mess. And so that's one situation where, funding was awarded and when they got into it, they're just like, it's more than we wanted to tackle, which is why we have no signs right now.
I have a question about 62120, the tourism purpose, unallocated funds, as we're calling them. Could those funds be used for something like the walking path proposal that would connect the mid-city to the south side of the city? Wouldn't that fall into tourism since tourists would use it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Dorian, which fund was that?
It's the tourism purpose.
Thank you.
62120.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll interject on that point that Oregon Coastal Visitors Association budget 2 million plus. I got it here somewhere. $577,000 or 28% of their funding went to destination development projects. The biggest portion of that was $130,000 to visitor management trail restoration, which was their project to complete portions of the Oregon Coast Trail. That's the reason we have an Indian Beach Trail open again, is those tourism dollars were used for that purpose.
Thanks. Transient room tax fund, page 33.
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll see there is no beginning fund balance here, and that's because the room tax collected here, the 70% of 1%, which is the same amount that the tourism and arts fund gets. And so 100% of what's collected here goes to the Chamber of Commerce. So we never carry a balance in this account. In the revenue section here, resources, the $421,940 plus $59,310 add up to the $481,250, just like it does in TAF. And then I have a little extra amount here, revenue in excess of budget, $96,250. And I allow for that in case if we exceed our budget, 5.5 million, then we're going to owe the chamber more money than $481,250. So that's my little buffer there that says, okay, if we bring in more money than I've budgeted in the other funds, then I have that to rely on. I don't have to come to council and say, I need a budget adjustment because I don't have spending authority to pay the chamber. So it's perfectly, it could happen that we exceed our budget. So that's kind of what I do. And that's why that's in there. And like I said, we never pay anything else out except for what we collect, which is what the contract says. You can see under tourism purposes, we have spending authority of $577,500 in order to pay the chamber.
But it would be less if we don't exceed the budget.
Yes.
Okay.
And the last 2 years, those collections have gone up. It's like about,
Well, yeah, our room tax has been going up.
looks like almost 10% per year.
We have a chart here that shows that in the budget. On page 13, you can see we had 7% increases in 2022. 2021, we had 3% increase.
13.
So, and then in 2020, of course, we had the pandemic where we had a decrease. So that's kind of the history there.
When you say tourism promotions, 577, 500, does that include the visitor center?
Yes, the whole chamber contract.
And do we know how much of that is visitor center?
No, because we don't break it out that way.
Why not?
But I think we've seen it.
Yeah, it's part of Jim's
Yeah.
presentation. I'm gonna guess,
100,000.
that's my guess.
When we did the contract, we were giving them $150,000 a year to run the visitor center. And that was rolled up into the entire cost.
So it's 150,000 a year.
Yeah, then I
Back
think
then.
if he says it's 200 now, I wouldn't be surprised.
That's just what I remember from the last presentation.
I'm agreeing with you.
I'm not necessarily agreeing with me.
No, I'm agreeing with, that's something I can't help you.
My
with.
memory is
Yeah.
rapidly fading.
I know, so's mine.
And when was the last time we looked at that contract?
Probably when the contract was put in place.
Which was about, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
I don't think it was 5, it might have been 3 or 4.
Still think we need to look at it again.
You like us to bring it to you?
Huh?
Would you like us to bring it to the council?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Clapham County TRT Fund, page 56.
Okay. We started receiving this money back in 2018. And we have a big fund balance of $792,813. Initially, we had some expenses for the Cannon Beach Elementary School, so that used some of that money there, but recently for the year and a half, we haven't had any expenditures in this fund because we had the bond proceeds come in to pay for the improvements at the school. You can see that fund balance and then plus revenue that we're projecting for next year, which is the same amount as in the other room tax funds that I just mentioned, $481,250. And I slotted that in there under tourism promotion at $1,028,163. And then we have our bond payments of $245,900 that we need to make. And so between those two expenditures under materials and services and debt service, that's $1,274,063, which matches the resources.
May I ask what falls under tourism promotion?
That's just, how you can spend the money. So that's just the line item where you can spend that money out of.
And how are we spending that money?
We're leaving it here in this fund to have available monies for the Cannon Beach Elementary School. But it's not earmarked for anything. It's just there as a placeholder.
Dorian, you can actually do that with any of the 7% that you collect. You could collect it with small towns do this. That in the future may have something that they legally could spend the money on. So rather than have a chamber of commerce, they just have a fund. But if it isn't dedicated to that, am I correct, Lori? It has to be the right fund in order to make those expenditures.
Yeah, this is the money that's been earned in this fund, but hasn't been spent. And it's for tourism purposes, and it gives the city spending authority. If they want to spend it, then we can. But it's not earmarked for anything right now. It's gonna be, operations for Cannon Beach Elementary. It's dedicated to Cannon Beach Elementary at this time.
Why don't we call it that? Why do we call it tourism promotion if if we're already saying it's going to be dedicated to the elementary school project?
It's just a title that I use throughout the room tax funds. Just to make it clear that that's the purpose of this fund. And that the room tax collected is 70% of the 1%.
I understand that. My misunderstanding is that there's an expenditure being proposed on the budget of over $1 million that, if I'm understanding you correctly, is earmarked unofficially or officially towards the elementary school.
Yes.
But here is tourism promotion. Promotion to me is a lot bigger than just one project.
Okay, I can change that.
No,
I mean, don't mind.
I was just trying to understand that. That's why my question was, are we spending this on TV advertisements? That was the.
Oh, no.
my question.
Promotion is probably the wrong word. I think it should be purpose.
Okay.
And I can change that if
That's all I was asking.
would like that.
That money's really going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think, like Dorian, the optics to me is that, we have a big lift coming ahead of us. And the more the city shows that it's solved its own problem before asking for funds from TLT or other things, I just think the optics of that are much better. I would recommend to the council.
Yeah, I like the word purpose a lot better than promote.
I agree with you.
Seems a totally different thing altogether.
Yes.
Prepared food sales tax fund, page 55, please.
56. No, you're right. Sorry, I'm behind. Yeah.
We have a fund balance of 924,000. That's an expected balance. We are currently collecting the prepared food tax in this current year. And so we don't have a lot of history to rely on to see whether collections are coming in. I'm anticipating this fund balance. And based on the results that I've seen so far this current year. And we are holding the line at the revenue amount of the tax, $1,760,000, which is the current budget. And that would bring us $2,684,000. And I've got the Cannon Beach Fire District share that we need to cut checks for here at $900,000. And then as everyone has been talking about, the City Hall debt service, we've dedicated the rest of the money, the city share, to that purpose. And so I just put the rest of that under bond payments, City Hall, as a placeholder. Obviously, we're not going to spend that. We haven't even issued bonds yet, but I know that that is what we're anticipating doing. So that's where I put that. I also put a contingency in of 20%. And so that your total expenditures then are 2.684 million, which equals your resources.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just wanted to say, there's a lot of things still going on that, we're not certain about, we don't know how much the bond payments are going to be. We don't know how, much maybe we should have in an ending fund balance. So these are just mechanisms to set aside the appropriate amounts of money and have flexibility in the budget. Because we know this is dedicated for certain purposes only.
As a budget committee member of the rural fire district, I given a message to carry to you all from the chief. He's having a hard time with staff resources because our volunteer effort is down so much. I mean, we've hired people, but the volunteer effort has gone down pretty dramatically. As you probably all read, if you've seen the little flyer that came out, the chief expects to propose a levy at the fall election, but that money doesn't really, become available until January 25? Am I doing the math right? So he's
24, I think.
Well, yeah, but in terms of actual receipts. So he has a cash flow problem. And he was like, yeah, this money's going into the building fund. And I'm like, well, I'm all in favor of the building fund, Mark, but he's wondering, and I wonder if it's appropriate for the council to consider if there is a perhaps loan or something, because he's got a cash flow issue. He's got a way to solve this with a levy, but he's got a cash flow issue until that money comes in. It might take him 2 or 3 years to repay or something like that. But I don't want to starve our building fund at all. But I'm sympathetic to what the council would address at some other time, but it's about a $400,000 hole. Annually? It's not an annual thing. It's a transition until he can get the levy, assuming the levy passes, of course, but he doesn't view it as a structural issue. He views it as a cash flow issue.
And Chief had talked to me about this. I told him that, I just as an exercise that we can take a look at it, but something that we have to realize that if it impacts the schedule and the project schedule in any way, right now, the project is costing us 110, either 100 or 110,000 a month. The project is going to be more every month, like while we're trying to make decisions. And if we have to wait to receive the funds back from Mark, and I'm glad to hear he's talking about paying it back, because that was not part of our conversation.
He first wanted the money outright. It's like, how about a loan?
Yeah, maybe so he's downgraded a little bit. But I want everybody to remember that in our delay, I asked what the CMGC, asked them to go ahead and tell us how much per month that we invest now is it going to cost us at the end. And it's there's the lower cost, which is if we build everything up there, 100,000 a month, and it's 110,000 a month if we split the project. So
That's a very good point to make, Bruce. I guess I don't really feel like we need a council response, but I do have. And that is it possible that we could make a loan if we knew how much time there was going to be for us to start repaying our bond obligation?
I think it is possible.
And I'm not advocating for that. I'm just, like I said, I just wanted to give a response that I do have, not it seems like there's a lot of open-ended possibilities here.
Right.
But it also seems like if you're correct, $400,000 doesn't seem like that much of an ask.
It was, his ask to me was larger.
Okay.
I spoke with him yesterday,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
he may have
We'll go with.
sharpened his pencil.
And the reason that I couldn't just come out and give them an answer is I don't know what decisions, we're gonna make.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Right. And then also what the timing is like if there's a lot of moving parts on this.
Yeah.
So if it was a loan and it was something that didn't impact our project, I think it's something that could happen. But when talking about the district's $400,000, unless there is a way for that to continue, I don't know if he's going to have the funds the next year or whatever year to go ahead and pay it. We would have to see that.
That would depend on what the size of the levy increase.
Right.
You could present value that out.
Right.
But
And I would encourage the district, the district has a very important job in this community. And when we talk about risk management, the biggest risk any of us has in this town is to have a heart attack. Because we don't have, I would like to see us have a paramedic workforce. That's what I'm used to. So I think I would encourage them to go for a levy and let people make a decision on whether or not they're willing to pay the funds to have that kind of a service, as opposed to saying, well, I don't think it'll pass, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half, and then we just keep having the same problems. So
It's more dire than you're talking about.
yeah.
Who planned that?
Did you make a call? I was talking.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, the conversation is ongoing between me and Mark unless you provide additional direction.
I just don't know what that would be. I'm open to. And I'm supportive of the fire department. I don't have any direction for you.
Okay. How about that we bring something back to council once we have, the staff has a better understanding of what our plans are for the project, the financial implications of it, and then may see what's going on with the a little bit better handle on the levy.
Yeah, I'd say that's a starting.
Yeah.
And I want you to know I negotiated on your behalf
Oh, thank
for the
you.
loan, not the gift.
Thank you, because I didn't get anywhere. I'm gonna go to you from now on. So thanks, Tim.
Hey,
So I wanted to make a request if it's possible, clearly not for this year, but since many of us will be here next year. Can we add a column to all of these wonderful reports that shows where we are year to date?
In the budget document?
Yeah.
This is a prescribed method by Oregon budget law. You have to keep within this layout.
Okay.
We could,
Well, you do have year-to-date information at the front of each budget fund. Like right here for the RV park,
Okay.
that,
I know, but it's just, I'm used to reading the budget there, so I could compare where we are versus the proposed budget. So
we could put something out that has more information than what is required by the state. So I think that's something that we could provide.
that would be great. It's just,
It would be a separate document.
yeah, it just would be really helpful. It comes up for me every time we look at this, but especially on the prepared food tax. It would be nice to know where yes, I know I could go back to it, but just looking at the one place to see where we are with quality would be super helpful. So if that's a possibility, that would be very beneficial.
sure.
Okay. RV Park, 68.
Okay. Park, we work with Escape Lodging. They manage the facility. You can see up here, we have a beginning fund balance of $1,000. They prepare the budget for us every year. And where these numbers come from, the revenue amount is provided by them, 2.9 million. Personnel services, we calculate that amount, and basically it's just a little bit of overtime, mainly from Public Works if they have to go out to the RV park for certain things. It's very nominal. We have administrative services expenses, and again, that's those internal service funds where we have the executive department and the finance department. We allocate the costs of those among all the funds, and so that's what that is. From the executive department, 150,557. And then from the finance department, $52,408. We have insurance that we keep for the, it's called pollution liability. It's related to the fuel tanks at the gas station. And then facility maintenance, this is an amount that I put in for if something were to occur that we needed to work on the facility, maintaining it, we could have available funding for that. RV park overhead, this comes from Escape Lodging, 2.29 million. And then the management fees that we pay them annually, $100,000. And then, so that's personnel, materials and services, and then we have transfers out. We're transferring 300,000 or proposing to into the general fund and proposing 100,000 into the RV Park Reserve Fund for capital improvement. A lot of talk of paving over there. Escape Lodging feels that we need to make some improvements over there. And so that's pretty much what that's for.
You happen to know what falls into the overhead? What is?
That's all the operating costs.
That's
personnel.
operating costs?
Yes, total operating costs.
So what does the city actually get out of owning this park? Is it only the 300,000?
Well, 400,000, I guess. Well, yeah, 300,000, I guess, is going into the general fund. Yeah. Well, and then we have a contingency too, if anything were to happen, of 534,000. And then an ending fund balance of 57,000. So.
So what is our net revenue then
For the city?
For the budget?
300.
for the city? 300,000. We paid 3 million to get 300.
Well, we're not paying it. But that was my question. It seems like it would be an interesting, I think, experiment. Put some numbers together, what it would cost the city to manage and run this park without Escape Lodging, and would the net income be significantly higher than the 300,000?
I don't know, when you have to pay PERS and.
Right, if I just.
But we don't know.
Ever done that?
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if we've ever done.
I looked at
spreadsheet.
I looked at the contract and I actually thought that the Escape Lodging fees were modest. That was my impression. That we essentially take all the risk, revenue, capital, maintenance, everything else. And they get their management fee plus 6% of net. Which didn't sound excessive.
So they're charging almost 2.5 million for overhead, or we don't know if that is. I'm not saying they're.
Yeah, could that be an allocated or overhead from their organization, maybe? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think it would be judicially, not judicially, fiscally responsible to do a little spreadsheet or whatever it would take to see. And maybe we are much better having it done this way, but maybe we're not. And I think that would be a question I have.
Laura, you must know what the 2.2 million is, right? We get a bill each month. Is that what we get from
Yes,
them?
yes, we get, yes,
Itemized and
yes.
But it actually flows through our account. So
Right.
we get a bill, we are the payor of.
They give us their expenditures each week.
Yeah.
And then we reimburse them. But it's all itemized. We know exactly what it is and we analyze it to make sure that
The way I
we
read it,
agree with them.
They have to
I'm not in any way, shape, or form suggesting that they're doing anything wrong or inappropriate. I'm just asking if we know, could we potentially have an extra 300,000 if we did it ourselves? And that's not an insignificant amount.
or should we be in the for-profit RV business?
Yeah.
Given we have other pressing.
We have many pressing needs. I have my own ideas. I'm not sure this is the exact forum to bring them up, but I'm more than willing to discuss options.
Now, does page 66 show that 2022, there was 2.3 million in revenues and 1.8 million in expenses. So essentially, the net operating, coming back to Nancy's question, was close to $500,000. And we've actually transferred those funds both to the general fund and to the RV fund.
Yes.
Lori did actually send out a P&L to all of us. I'm sorry to say I have not really studied it, but we all have. That is gap based on the RV part, so.
To go to your question, it's on page 68, it does show that 500,000.
I'm sorry, Doreen, did you say 68 or 78?
So there was a question about what the net revenue was for 21, 22, and Lori has on page 68.
Okay,
It shows it at 250, so general fund and RV reserve.
Okay, thank you.
2020 was the only year in five we didn't get anything.
It was COVID.
Yeah, it was. The average over 5 years is 150,000. Run rate at 300.
Or do you separate the TLT collected by the RV park separate than, I know you do short-term rentals and hotel motel? Is RV lumped into one of those two?
Into hotel. Yeah, it's definitely.
I'm curious
hotel.
what it is, if there will
We'd have to go back to returns to really, for their form filings to actually see what the revenue is on that.
And I think sometimes people forget that we are collecting.
Yeah, and so when you talk about it only making X amount of dollars, you have to remember that it's also making that TLT 8%.
Yeah.
I don't know what that number is, but
Yeah, so there's net revenues and then there's lodging tax collections. So
Right.
The reserve fund on page 60.
Okay, we kind of touched over this already. Have resources of 462,540 estimated. We have the line item for paving park grounds and then an unallocated project, 162,540. And so total expenditures of $462,540 in reserve for those purposes.
So that paving project was in previous year's budget and not used.
Correct.
Have we got a contract on that or?
No, we haven't really gotten,
We're building it up.
yeah.
Would the unallocated project be something that would come to council?
Yes, definitely.
Are there any
Anyway,
projects?
not currently. We're anticipating these projects in the future. And like Bruce said,
That also require council. Or the EV charging station would be really nice.
There is one, we have
There's
one.
one, but it's only at 50, whatever the
Pretty old.
technology is, and most cars now do up to, at least 150. It's a major difference in terms of the amount of time it takes. I drive an EV, so I speak from a little bit of experience. It is a major difference. So that's why I'm asking.
Is that one, do you know, Dorian, is that a Tesla station or is it everything?
No, it's a CCS one. So it's all cars except, well, Teslas can charge, they were kind of happen to. It's all cars except for Nissan.
Okay.
Use it.
Right, because I've had some comments and want to find out about the availability of that station actually being up and ready to go. And whether or not we've got the best technology, because there's a lot of people that are talking to us about wanting to be set up. So that's probably something you'll see in the next year.
There are a lot of grant options out there these days too.
A lot. One of the reasons Tesla's opening up their charging stations to other EVs is because of the ability to get the grant money. So.
And I think, I know that, I don't know if our power company, but Portland General, for commercial EV stations, I think they'll pay you $25,000. And it's pretty amazing. So.
Transition the city to EVs, which would reduce maintenance and fuel costs.
I'm in favor of that.
Well, we have seen across this budgeting process that there's a lot of increase in both fuel and maintenance for the fleets that the city uses. And while there is an additional expense potentially to transition to EVs, I think the city would save money long term. As vehicles need replacing, like the police chief had mentioned, needing a new SUV.
Hey,
All those are conversation worthy.
yeah. Page 111, debt service fund.
Okay, the debt service fund is here to levy taxes to pay general obligations. Estimating $433,758 in property tax collections and prior tax $9,000. The transfer from the general fund in order to offset the levy. And that's $213,642. Normally, GO bonds, you would levy the full amount without having a transfer. But long ago, city council decided that they thought that the room tax should pay for a part of the lagoon project. So that's why historically, it's about 50% from general fund that goes into to help offset the cost of the levy. So really, we could levy more property tax legally, but we don't because that's been a council decision this whole time. So that's why you see that. And then the debt service on our GO bonds are total $649,400. And we leave a little ending fund balance in there of 20,000.
Tourism Facility Renovation Fund, page 114.
The capital projects fund, it collected the bond proceeds. When we issued the bonds. It was 4.69 million in bond proceeds in 21-22. There were some expenditures from there, and then we were left with 3.9 million in order to continue the improvements at Cannon Beach Elementary. And so we have spending authority under building renovation of 3.9 million. And that's our total expenditures as well.
Administrative Services Fund, page 120. Executive.
Okay, I've made reference to these funds in a few places during these meetings. The Executive department is the city manager and the city recorder. FTE are 2. You'll see the personnel services costs of $447,000 and materials and services of $277,400. And so the resources come from us charging the eligible funds. It's operating funds only. And so it's an in and an out. Charge whatever we spend. So it always nets to zero every year.
The finance piece of that, 121.
The finance department's budget principal. We charge out an estimated amount next year of $666,000. Our personnel costs are $579,000. We have 4.3 FTE. I have 3 full-time staff. I have the court clerk, cashier, receptionist. So she has 2 specific duties, and so there's 0.55 in here. And then another staff member is at 0.75 FTE. This budget, our audit costs have gone not up much. Materials and services have gone from 78,000 to 86,000. Just really nominal increases in each area here. Nothing really that's really sticks out to me. Copier expenses have gone up. Other than that, it's pretty normal with prior year.
And then the Administrative Services IT Fund, page 122.
Okay, this is IT. Estimating 394,346 charged out to their funds. There's 1 FTE. And you'll see, did you want to talk about this at all on your materials and services?
Yeah. Most of ITs are related to software that we need to run things, different services or maintenance contracts. Internet service for City Hall is in there. Most of my stuff isn't changing this year, the exception being hardware. We're looking at aging gear, so we're going to be replacing a phone system for figuring it's about 15,000. We're going to be replacing all of our servers and our storage because they're 7 going on 8 years old. Also, we'll get in front of some issues if we do a new City Hall. And if we have the event, we have to split City Hall and Police Department. We would have City Hall's gear in, and then maybe we'd have to address police departments at that time. Trying to think of what else is in there. Oh, a new backup system is the other one. Backup is one of those evolving things that needs to be constantly updated, and this is going to be a way that we can address cybersecurity issues where backups you don't want getting corrupted, because if that happens, I have nothing to resort back to if we have issues. So we want a better backup system. That's about it.
Laura, I have a question. We talked earlier, last week, about the increase in salaries of 5%, which was higher than the contract, which is awesome. But in the last three budgets, it seems to me like just under salaries and wages, the increase is 10%. So is there a different increase to these three than the?
So we're looking at a COLA of 5%, but you also have in there merit increases due to union contracts and whatnot.
Perfect, thank you.
Hey, Rusty, I have a question. Are you, as a municipality, are you limited to? Do you have to do all your computing on site, or can you host things, or how does that work in terms of?
No, we can host things offsite. Police department's a little bit different. We go to a higher level of security for those things, but yes, we certainly do. And we do have, our email right now is offsite, so we have backups there. Certain things are, certain things aren't. Our Excel system right now is completely housed on site, but it does back up off. That would be one we could offload remotely if we wanted to, and that's our billing system and all of our tracking and all that kind of stuff. So.
Is there a direction from the city to go one way or another? I mean, and the reason I ask is not only this is my background for 25 years, so I like talking about it.
Right.
But you know, we hear a lot about building in the tsunami zone, high availability, yada, yada, yada. And if we're just putting servers in the back room, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, if you are not bound by having to do that, you know, have local copies, et cetera, and things like that.
Right.
So
Several of them are offsite, right?
We have our backups and our emails are offsite, correct? Yeah, but we do have quite a bit of local also. So we have both.
So is the hardware purchases we're making for servers and such, and is there an opportunity to put that in the cloud instead?
Good. What's interesting is when you start looking at costs to move things off site, it's almost as expensive to keep it on site. So it's.
Is that planned on the part?
Of course. Cloud is a big giant buzzword, right?
Yeah.
But it's safe from the tsunami there, maybe.
Could be. Yes.
Is it more safe than from a cyber perspective than local servers? It seems like some of the stories we've heard of and all about local servers.
Right. It's kind of a wash. I mean, I think it's kind of the same both ways. It depends on who your provider is for all that. The other big thing that we've had is you got a pretty good sized pipe to deal with that internet wise. And until recently, we weren't internet. So to get reliable internet, it's not cheap, especially when you're a municipality. But it is something we can certainly look at.
You can also do some stuff colo, right? Get a colo somewhere.
That's good.
Yeah. Away from the tsunami zone.
Well, in theory, if we had a city hall out of this inundation zone or police station, we could certainly do it that way too.
Rusty,
Yes.
what about having those services at the police station? If we were to have the city hall stay here, that's a possibility.
Yep. All we would need is an internet connection and we could house everything offsite.
Okay.
So yes, if we invest in the system here and then we end up building, we could move all that gear offsite.
Okay.
You're always going to have some gear on site. You're going to need switches and all kinds of other gear, your phone system, and all that's going to be tied to a portion of that. So you're always going to have some kind of closet here on site with gear in it. So you're never going to get completely away from that. But we could move certain things like our servers off or to a different location.
Thank you.
Yes. Covered everything.
Central services.
On the back. You just. Because I need the green.
Yeah.
Administrative Services Fund, page 123.
Yeah, this is called central services. This is mostly just indirect costs that aren't related to IT, finance, or executive. And so we, like insurance, you'll notice that's gone up $30,000 next year. So that's the predominant amount that you see that's increasing our materials and services budget. There are no FTEs in here. Bank service charges. Is another, and the utilities for the city. It's kind of what this central services budget is about.
The insurance, things like workers' comp and stuff like that, or property.
Not workers' comp, because that's up in personnel services, but
Property.
liability, cybersecurity, property, auto, all of those things.
Yep. And last item, staff report.
You're at the end of the road already?
Oh, yeah.
Easy. Let's do more. Good job.
Yeah. I have a question for Dorian. Dorian, you'd asked about. Yeah, really, yes.
Gotta be a two-way.
Just getting, I'm easily confused. You asked about the cost of separating the police station from City Hall.
Yes, and
I think we got that. And then, do you have any questions on?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for sending that. That was very helpful.
Okay. And again,
It
I
makes total sense.
would love to show people this wall. If you haven't seen it, I'll show you.
I've seen it, but that report from the.
Yeah.
Archives is very helpful.
Good,
Very,
good.
reassuring.
All right, good.
How many years ago?
Or sheriff, not sure that's. the-
Wow, reassuring. in terms of the direction as well.
2018.
Let me be clear. Not about the condition.
Stay away from now.
Remember that report was 16 years old, 16 years old. At Tolabana.
It was 2018.
Okay, that's a different one.
Okay.
16 years.
Yeah, you just,
Yeah, 16 years ago, we had another report that said if you needed to replace it. Oh,
Yeah.
and then
We move very quick.
have someone make
yes, we do.
to approve. And the motion's right there verbatim.
This and then do the motion. Or
Yeah.
do
If everyone's ready and at that point.
I don't know if this is the right time, but I just really want to commend Lori and her team for an amazing budget presentation. Really, really exceptionally well done. And thank you for answering our gazillion questions, all of you, so well and so joyfully.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If I can just, there's some things that we said that we would take a look at. One was a local shuttle. Other thing was doing the funding, making a modification. We increased the revenue. We didn't increase the expenditure to be able to buy more merchandise, farmers market.
Yeah.
So we will make a change, that change you will see when we come back. We provided the information on the cost of the city hall and PD split. And we will take a look at how to do incorporate year-to-date expenses next year. But separate from the state document, but just have it someplace that you can see those things. So include that. Checking on EV stations. And I think it's something that we can talk to council later on. I'm not sure we have the time to jump into it right now, but about the cost for the city to run the RV park.
And then the chamber contract.
And then, and that was, I got that right there, this next one, little tiny letters. But to bring back the chamber contract to the council. So, is there anything else that we talked about?
That compliance software issue, we were gonna look.
Yeah, I'll have to get Jason. And we're transitioning. We just introduced the code enforcement guy. One of the reasons I'm a little reluctant to help the chief is because he keeps stealing our people. No, he just stole
A steal there.
I know, yeah, but he stole Luke. But anyway, so we have somebody new. We just
That
introduced.
chief.
Pardon?
I thought you meant Jason.
Yeah. And so if you can give us a little bit of time, because we want the new guy to get into it a little bit. And we need to be looking more closely about what that program is actually doing for us. So I don't know if we'll get it all in this budget or not, or to respond before we get the budget done. But it's definitely something that'll be looked at before next year.
I'm not sure how this fits in, but we did talk about whatever we would need to do to move forward with Chief Reckman and
Yes.
his ask.
Yeah, and I
Does
think
that have anything to do with,
I don't know if it's budget, but I think
ultimately it would be, but
yeah, but I think the direction that I got was that we would continue to evaluate our information, talk to the chief about what his needs are, and then see if we could make that work without significant expense to the city in terms of our project and project delays.
thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, you have it
Okay.
behind you.
Jan? Yeah.
Thank you. I just had a question about the city arborist and the community development fund. That it would be, if it could be increased, at least discuss it a little bit, because it looks like the fund went down from last year, and I don't understand why, when we are having so many issues with trees being cut down that don't actually need to be, if there could be better planning ahead of time with the city arborist, and that would be where the city arborist would need to be hired a consultant to help with the creation with use the trees.
Can you address that? I agree with Jan, and I would like to, before we come back in June or whenever it is, to put that $15,000 in. I think that we've done a lot of things to try to protect trees, but I think we're seeing situations that trees are being damaged before it's noticed something might be going. So we would need to do some other tweaks to the code where somebody, if there's any consideration or if there's trees on a site that we say, okay, well, the arborist has got to evaluate before you do any work, that kind of a thing. So I think that could possibly address some of the things, just like the little surprises we get, that sort of thing. So if it's all right with council, I would like to put that in.
I totally support that. I actually have a question for you, Jan. How did you come up with that number?
With the number, well, that was what we asked for last year, and we did it last year. But when Sam asked for it at the end of this process, we put 10 of the 15,000 into current budgets, and then only 5 went into the budget for Jeff Adams with the community development using the consultants. And then I noticed this year, even that 5 looks like it was taken back out. And so we really need to build up that fund rather than make it smaller. Because
I completely agree with that. I just wondered, was there an idea about how much cost it would take to actually do the work?
got a quote last year and figured it out.
Okay.
It's not,
Thank you.
but it was community.
So, Lori, are you finding that in the,
Excuse me,
are you finding that amount?
I'm not sure which fund or department.
Page 32 and.
It's community development.
And it's currently 8,000.
And last year, it looks like it was 13 and.
Okay. I'm with you.
We put in, make it the total 28,
28. Okay, so
20 and see how it works.
we'll need a motion to increase it by 20,000.
Why are we going that high?
I would anticipate that if we're going to be doing things proactively, there's going to be more time. And we're going to be calling on the arborist more frequently than when we call on them after something has happened.
Should some of that be in the parks budget though? Is it all?
I think it's all community development.
Okay.
It would only happen during construction.
Okay.
When somebody's proposing construction.
Doesn't that already happen as a part of the permitting process? I had someone who went through building permits recently.
It does to a degree. But we've had a recent situation where we thought a tree was protected, that was not. So
Ashley.
that's why I agree with the idea of let's make all those decisions around that and provide more protection on it or be more proactive with it. Because what we're doing, I think that our code is good, but it's not accomplishing everything that we want it to.
I just would like to remind everyone that there is a social group working on rewriting that code. Same way as the wetland social group has been helping.
Right.
So we're just at the beginning stage.
Okay.
But we will have something to present to the council shortly.
And I think that speaks to support of what you're asking for, Bruce, is that if, like you said, we change rules, we're going to require the use of the arborist more. That's why I asked Jan that question.
Sure.
I'm just guessing, but the amount seems low to me.
And that's why I gave direction to put in 20.
Yeah.
That would, the motion we would ask for would be for 20.
And I'm totally supportive of that. I still think maybe things make sense from there, depending on what we do.
And being somewhat facetious here, but next time we adjust our legal budget, we can go ahead and put in some more money for trees.
I didn't want to say it.
That just seems to be going up and up and up. Every time we think we got it, we don't. So that can be adjusted during the year.
So we need a motion if we want to make that change. Now you're saying that you wanted the budget to be 28,000.
Total.
Yes. So
Hey,
we want to make a motion that we're saying we're adding $20,000. So that it's then 28.
Separate motion.
Well, it'll be one motion
Somebody needs to make the motion.
prior to approving. Prior to
I'll move.
approving,
I'll make a motion to,
and
sorry,
you could also add that also will maintain the contingency at 10% because it's going to change contingency because it's based on expenditures. And then the resulting fund balance will be whatever it is. I guess you don't really need to worry about ending fund balance, just maintaining a 10% contingency after the change.
so you were asking for a motion. Would move to increase budget item ending 62,451 consultant tree permits to increase to $28,000 and maintain the contingency at 10%.
Yes, sounds great.
Second it.
Right here. Does everyone, the committee? Okay. Do we do it roll call?
I believe so. Can you do a roll call? Have you done a roll call?
In the past, we used to just be all in favor.
Okay,
Yeah. Just vote.
just an all in favor.
Okay, does Paul call it or do I?
The city council.
Well, that'd be Paul.
Committee.
Wow.
Eddie,
Yeah, because you all are modifying the budget document.
you're all one body.
And we have a motion and a second, right? So all those in favor?
Yes.
You said the motion.
Nancy, no, Nancy did.
Nancy did. Opposed?
Wow, with a crowd like this, maybe you could vote twice.
Do we need to talk about the sea turtles
Yeah.
line item? Is that something?
It's sort of passed unless the council wishes to modify it like we've done in the past.
But there, right now, the proposed budget does not have any money for sea turtles.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
I
there's
got
the
you.
motion, right, about it?
Just approve the budget.
No, we.
No.
No, no, it's approved.
Not yet.
Approve. I'm
We are
sorry.
adding 25.
Oh, my apologies.
I think it is appropriate to make a decision on that because we talked so much about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that the next question is whether or not there should be a line item for sea turtles for. And if so, an amount.
And what was it last year? 20?
Yeah.
10.
I think without knowing if there's other entities out there who can do something similar but less invasive, it's hard for me to say yes or no about giving sea turtles the money. Because I would rather give the $10,000 to an organization that could remove the microplastics without interfering as much with your other organic material. And we don't know that. Kelly didn't have an answer, obviously. So to me, that's still a big unknown.
I'd like more information on it. I mean, we didn't hear from Neil Main. I would certainly respect his, perspective on it. I still have some questions myself. So if we did not put it in there, are we gonna have an opportunity to support them?
If council was to take action so that whatever amount you wanted to put out would be come from contingency at some point, so you can make a budget adjustment as we get into the year.
And then I think there's also the issue of them carrying out their part of the deal with the financial reporting and that kind of thing. So I mean, if we were ever to give them funds, there has to be some guarantee that they follow through on what they were asked last year that they didn't do.
Yeah, so you put conditions on it.
Right.
And then we would do a report on whether or not you got the reports. Or they got the reports next year if they make another request.
Right.
Could you put a budget line item for $10,000 but not specify the company it goes to? So you have the money in the budget that gets approved and then you award the money to either Sea Turtles or another organization that could do it differently.
So you call it microplastic removal.
Yes.
Microplastic removal.
Exactly, without a beneficiary.
Good idea.
That's a really good idea.
So moved.
So seconded.
I assume we need another motion.
Think that Tim just made it.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So yes, I second that motion.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed?
$10,000.
Carried. Okay.
What was the amount?
$10,000.
Okay,
And it's microplastic removal.
Beach.
so what I'll do is I'll add a line.
Yeah.
Have to. I'll add a line because I have history data for giving them an initial donation. So you'll see sea turtles still in the budget. It'll be a 0. But then we'll add a line called, what do you want to call it? Microplastics?
Mediation.
Beach microplastic remediation. Is
Remediation. Okay.
that acceptable?
And that would just be microplastics, not the wood.
That's right. Wrong.
Well, we have to find out how.
Actually, I'm sorry, Bruce.
No, I'm sorry, you might.
Well, like Gary pointed to, we absent some information that we were,
Mhm.
that we had asked. Was a possibility.
And I have other questions about it as well, but
Mhm.
I don't want to use the budget committee to discuss them.
But before we awarded that money to an organization, we would have those questions answered
Yes,
that were,
yeah, a legitimate question,
oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
But I'm just, to Marlene's point, I think maybe we would come up with the decision that the woody debris did need to be,
Depending on our answer.
depending on the information that was given to us.
So would you also please add to the motion that we're going to maintain the contingency at 10%?
That was implied in my motion.
I thought so. Thank you.
Lori, does this need to get changed then to include those two?
No,
No.
that doesn't. It's just the budget as amended is what that refers to.
Okay, great. All right. Is there anything else we want to add? We're good. All right, I'm going to read the budget committee action now. This relates to the final approval of the City of Cannon Beach fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget document, including any amendments by the Cannon Beach budget. Approval of the fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget document, including amendments by the Cannon Beach Budget Committee, and submitting the approved budget to the City Council and recommending adoption. Whereas pursuant to Oregon budget law and after careful consideration, Cannon Beach's Budget Committee has comprised and approved a balanced budget for the City of Cannon Beach for fiscal year 2023-2024. Whereas the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 budget contains best estimates for projected revenues and expenditures, and whereas the Budget Committee has reviewed all estimated revenues and expenditures for all city departments and funds for fiscal year 2023-2024, making modifications and changes where appropriate. Therefore, the Cannon Beach Budget Committee has approved and authorized the city to levy the permanent rate of 0.7049 cents per thousand of assessed value for the general fund, to levy $455,628 for bonded debt, and to levy 25.2590 thousand of assessed value for the Cannon Beach Road District. After completing all obligations required under Oregon budget law, the Cannon Beach Budget Committee hereby approves the fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget as amended, comprised of revenues and expenditures for all city funds and departments, and submits the approved fiscal year 2023-2024 budget to the City Council for further consideration and recommended adoption. And need a recommended motion.
I move to approve the budget committee action, which gives final approval of the City of Cannon Beach fiscal year 2023-24 proposed budget document, including the amendments by the Cannon Beach Budget Committee.
Someone want to second that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? Approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Good job.
Good job, Vice President.
Thank you, everybody.
Peanut gallery has arrived.
On that.
Hey, thank you.
Degree. They said degree.
No.
Okay. Information. We haven't got. Other. Maybe. Necessary or. Yet to be determined, shall I say? Is that-
Oh, yeah, that.